What's up, everyone? Welcome to Inside Out Podcast. I'm your host, Yhá Mourhia Wright. The intention of this podcast is for you to enrich your life with behind-the-scenes interviews from entrepreneurs and thought leaders who are ready to keep it real about their journey thus far and what making an impact looks like to them from the inside out. Enjoy. All right, Summer, welcome to Inside Out Podcast. So quick backstory, y'all. I met Summer in technically 2016 is when I first corresponded with you. Because that's when you do calls, right? At the end of the year for any writers or anything. For Thinking in Full Color, which is now in full color. But I submitted a poem called African Drum. I'll insert a little excerpt right here. The brain cannot grow. We sow into our intellect because we reap what we sow. Moving through the sound of the African drum. Moving through the sound of the African drum. Plowing through the fields from where I come. Plowing through the fields from where I come. Echoing the voices of the ancestors from the past. Learning and teaching what is right or wrong. Hoping and praying our voices will last. To the generations forward, out to the future we reach. As we listen to the rhythms of the art we feel. As we succumb to our expressions. Allowing fiction to be left in the past. Birthing forth the realization of the real. Summer directed and was the producer for this show. It was the first performance I had, fun fact, after grad school. I graduated with my MFA in 2016, and I was having a hard time kind of finding my footing professionally, and it was a great marriage of me as a writer and me as a performer. So I got to perform African Drum. Summer was a phenomenal director, and I got to work with beautiful women. We had 3 performances. Is that right? That feels right.
I think so.
Yeah. So I know Summer, but y'all might be like, okay, well, tell me more about her. So here's her bio. Summer Dawn Reyes, founder and director. After seeing a need for more authentic representations of women of color in the arts, Summer created In Full Color in 2015. The theatrical production was a hit and gave rise to an eponymous award-winning organization that empowers women of color through education and the arts. The program, previously known as Thinking in Full Color, has received 2 commendations from the New Jersey State Assembly and the Jersey City Arts Council's Performing Arts Award. Summer is also the co-founder of 68 Productions, a theatrical company dedicated to producing work by and for people of color, and the winner of the Permanent Career Award in Literature from the Society of Arts and Letters, New Jersey, and the New Jersey Governor's Award in Arts Education. We're going to hold really quickly for an insert of Summer and some other women performing at In Full Color.
My body contracts. Inner linings detach. Life pushes out.
I raise the next generation. Men who touch, kiss, and rape because I asked for it. Men who cage daughters between front porches and backyards. Men who refuse to see me rule again.
All right, we are back and we are ready to get this show on the road. Summer, so what's up? How you feeling? Where's your head at today?
Wow, it's a big question at a time like this. So, dealing with COVID-19 and the quarantine, it's definitely made us adjust how we live, adjust how we create. COVID-19 has been so challenging for our organization and for me. I've been part of the gig economy for years. I've been a bartender, a teaching artist. Obviously, I run an arts organization. So I'm like figuring out how to go digital, how to reallocate my time. But yeah, it's kind of nice to slow down a bit. Definitely cooking more. Relaxing a little bit, which is a very foreign concept for me.
Mm-hmm. Talk to me. Lead the way here. What is it like being a powerful woman director, producer, founder What has your journey been like?
Wow. It's a really, really big question with a big answer. But overall, it's been really rewarding, but also somewhat challenging. For In Full Color, which we do every year, I work with 12 different women over the course of about 2 months to create a cohesive show. So this is 12 different stories, different learning styles, different universes. This is essentially 12 mini plays and then one big one that I stitch together. So I curate the show. I read through all the submissions and I choose the best ones, or I also curate for diversity. So we have a lot of wonderful pieces that unfortunately, aren't put into the show every year. But I try to get a different, a different ages, different ethnicities, different classes. I try to have a lot of queer women as well, right? And then, I work with people, and I'm also a writer, and that's been a big part of my life, and I think is a big part of who I am as a director. So we work on editing their piece, making cuts, and then I work with them and design their blocking or their movement, and we really shape each piece. We craft it into the most beautiful version of itself that it can be. And so each woman only has 3 hours to work with me. But sometimes
That's right.
it's like night and day sometimes. Like each of these women, they work so hard on their monologues. And they all come in they come in and they're gems, but I think they leave, as they're like designer tiaras, by the time they go through 3 hours. And it's a lot. It's a lot of work, but I really love it. It's helped me connect with different viewpoints, different women, and helped me deepen my understanding of womanhood, of different experiences, and of art.
I remember actually, and I had a drummer in mind. What was his name?
Anthony
Anthony.
Wills Jr.
Yes, Anthony. And I remember being like, how am I going? And I'm fresh out of grad school too, where I was like indulging in rehearsals. And so I was like, what, 3 hours? How? And it is theater magic. It is a feminine energy magic, in which it's just like you're able to literally cultivate and give birth to a performance and something that evolves even in the different performances, within the whole run of the show. What has that been like for you? I mean, I'm curious. I know some of our listeners, some people might be like, curious to, get involved with in Full Color, the next cycle, or who are directors. What has that process been like for you? What does that feel like to see that transformation?
Oh my God, it's amazing. It's really amazing. So In Full Color for me is kind of like the directing Olympics. But
Okay.
we had our first person fly in to perform in 2018, and that's because it was my little sister who is super,
Oh,
super talented. So I bankrolled that flight with my personal funds. I was
that's
like,
awesome.
I'll have my sister here for a month and have her perform. And she was so good. So she wrote this piece when she was like 12 or 13. And
Wow.
I think when she performed it, she was maybe 15 years old. Her name is Alina. Her name is Alina Hortolosa or Ortiosa, whatever. She wrote this poem called Walls. And a lot of it was about her biracial identity because she is Asian and white. It goes down this road where she's talking about, like, people, the cruel things that people say, or the self-loathing that she has internalized from basically, systematic racism, and
Mhm.
knowing that my baby sister's going through that, it was like really painful. And it was personal, and it wasn't just art. And it was so good, and she performed it so well. And yeah, I guess that's it's kind of it was a microcosm of what really happens over the course of the show. Like, not everyone. Some people I just meet really fresh, but I for a couple months I really get to know something about somebody very deep because it's their
Mhm.
story and they're sharing it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I get to know that person at a different level than I would if I was directing them doing someone else's work,
Mhm.
because it's not their experience, they're not their universe. So it's really authentic representation.
Stay tuned for a quick message from our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
Part of the magic of the theater world is being someone else. There's a
Yeah.
place for that. But we also need more authentic representation because when you look at mainstream media, you have a very limited or very skewed view of what, especially marginalized people are.
Mhm.
So my goal, I guess, is to create more of it. My goal is not
More
to
of it.
completely supplant, for people to only ever act as themselves. And, that's also limiting, and that's not healthy for art as a whole. But we definitely need more of it to just understand each other more.
You bring up a really good point here because I think that, and this is, I want to start with, this is not a knock. I mean, I have my MFA. This is not a knock to actors, but I am going to say that, and I can speak from my own experience. A lot of times, part of what attracts us is the ability to become someone else, to escape what we feel, our pain, our questions, and make sense of the world, our purpose. And so, in a macro way, I really feel like what you're doing is challenging people, like, okay, these are the words you wrote, and even though you're not a quote unquote performer, what is it like for you to breathe life, your own life, into these words, and to really resonate with other people in a way where you say, I'm owning this experience, I'm owning this joy, this pain, these questions, and I'm sharing that with you. That's very, very powerful. If you just look at this whole spoken word itself, it's very powerful when people say, I wrote this and I'm going to share this with you, because it's still performance, but it is me trying to make sense of the world, and this is how I'm performing. It's as vulnerable to me as singing is. If you write a song and you sing it, that's so vulnerable. And I think that I think what you're doing is really important because you, in many ways, are telling the audiences, or showing them, really guiding them to, these are real words and these are the people behind the words. And you can't have that extra layer of removal from reality. Like, oh, that was a really good show. Even though the show was saying a bunch about the world, you know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah.
this is straight from the source. Let me really confront, the realities of these people's experiences on this planet, That's powerful. That's powerful. You told me, however, that even in all of this, sometimes people say, well, if you're not in it, I don't want to see it. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, I guess the most challenging thing for me has been educating people on the fact that, like, my direction is my art, and it's my genius, that each and every one of the pieces they see on stage is partially my work, even if I'm not physically on stage. So,
Mhm.
like you said, a lot of times they'll say, oh, I don't want to see it, you're not in it, and it's frustrating to me because I am in it.
You are.
I don't spend 2 months rehearsing a show to not be in it.
You're curating it. Hello, hello.
Mhm.
You're like curating it. That you're
Yeah,
in it from the very beginning.
exactly. And each piece is really a collaboration between myself and the writers or actors. But it's I what I think the problem is I don't think people recognize women's mental or creative contributions. You know,
Mm,
like, women are their bodies, so women are expected to perform. Like, they want to see me on stage, which is great, but it's also a little bit like, dance for me. I, I'm not just my body. I don't have to perform for it to be me. My
mm,
mental labor and creative labor, it's just as valuable.
yeah.
Yeah, I think people have no problem recognizing that men directors craft their work and that their work is a product of their unique artistry. Like people are very conscious. Like I'm watching a Tarantino, I'm watching a Scorsese, I'm watching a
Mhm.
Spielberg, and unfortunately, there's much fewer women directors in film right now for the
Yeah.
time being. But even then, people are only starting to recognize their artistry and power as directors in the same way, and it's the
Do
same
you
in
think that?
theater.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying it's the same in theater. I don't think people. I don't know what people think I do. I think they probably think my contribution is a lot of the production work, which I also
Hmm.
do. But I think they think that I'm promoting the show, or I don't know, scheduling
You're a
things with
planner, right?
actors. Yeah, I'm
A show
planning.
planner.
Yeah, I'm a show planner. Is another thing that women always have to do, the mental organization and planning the
Hmm.
holidays, planning gift giving and social occasions. So that's probably what they think. I don't think people really understand that I'm creating when I direct. It's my vision.
How do we begin, or in what ways are we beginning to change the narrative and take it into our own hands? I mean, you're doing that, but what advice would you give someone who's like, yeah, I'm having a hard time? Because let me speak from experience. Sometimes it's challenging to even get your hands on someone else's work because they'll default to either a woman they already know, which is can be like the same small pool of people, or maybe they'll default to a man. How do women begin to build their director portfolio, whether it be theater, film, or anything in between?
Wow. Well, what I did was I just made my own stuff. I was like, you know what? Like, well, I started in full color because as an actor, I felt like I was going out all the time for roles, and I can try out for Asian or Hispanic roles, so I actually have privilege over some other brown people because I
Mhm.
could do both, which is very lucrative when you do commercial work because people are like, you're
Right.
ethnically ambiguous. Let's put you in everything. Um, but the thing that I found was they most roles would be Caucasian, especially any meaty roles. And then if there was someone who is Asian or Hispanic, it was possibly stereotypical role.
Mhm.
And anything that was any ethnicity was like a very minor role where they're like, well, we don't really care if the bank teller is whatever color, you know.
Mhm.
And what people also don't realize about that is when it says any ethnicity, it's not like, oh, cool, it's a role I can go out for. It's a role that everyone can go out for. So, if the lead role it says Caucasian woman, early 20s, that's a big pool, but she's only competing against Caucasian women in their 20s. For this any ethnicity bank teller role, I'm competing against Caucasian women, Black women, Latino women, Asian women,
Mhm.
people, like people of every color are coming out to be the bank teller. And,
Mhm.
and
That
especially,
smiles and hands you some cash.
yeah, exactly. And because those roles are usually also not as meaty, it's like, it's
Mhm.
also harder to be like, oh, I'm gonna impress them with my performance, with the smiling
Right.
and giving the money. Like there's almost no talent involved, so you can't really go anywhere. But that's why you have to make your own opportunity, I think, and for writing, for directing, but also I think we need to educate people on what directors do because I think the only people who
Okay. Talk
know.
about it.
I guess I'll go through the process a little bit. So I curate the show. I look through all the submissions and I pick stuff. So some directors do that. Sometimes it depends on the project, obviously. But sometimes we get something from a writer that's already written. Sometimes we're assigned to a project, like you mentioned. But I think what's always common is that the director and the actor then look at the thing in front of them, the words in front of them, and then they say, is there anything that sounds awkward? Sometimes
Mhm.
something sounds great on the page, but when you say it out loud, you're like, no one would ever say that like
No
that.
one would ever say that. No
Yeah.
one. Unless it's like a character choice, and then, okay, not everyone should say it like that, you know?
Yeah, or it's just the way
Yeah.
something is worded, or maybe something sounds more repetitive when it's said than when it's written. What's dragging? What can we cut? What can we add? What's clear, right? But the most important thing, and I think the thing that is the biggest creative and mental um, labor intensive, is what is the framework for this piece. So I'm working with people of all different levels, right? And so for them, this may be a question that they never thought of, right? And I say, if this were in a play, if this is just part of a play, who is your character talking to? What is their intention? And we like shape this entire universe together, which is really fun because I'm a big ideas person. Yeah, I'm dramatic. I like big stakes. I'm always
I
pushing
mean,
for
you
big.
let me hop around with drums, you know?
No, working with you was so fun because you were so like down with it. Like some actors are just like, just tell me what to do. Tell me to be on the floor. Tell me to do this. And then, and you also had great ideas. And so like, you're like, I loved working with you. And those are some of the best performers you can work with. Especially for me, like my style of direction is like, sometimes I can be really exact, but I can also
Mhm.
be like really liberal. And I think you experience some of this. Like sometimes I'll be like, I don't care how you say, can you close the door, but make a choice. Like do something deliberate.
Yeah. No, it was a joy working with you because you were very much so like, okay, what have you worked on? And some days I'd be like, oh crap. And you'd be like, what did but very hands off yet involved. Me as the performer felt that you gave I started at 100. You weren't like, okay, what does this person, have? It was really like, okay, I trust you to do the work outside of, and then when you come into the room, what are you bringing? What have you been working on? And it was really important for me to have that level of responsibility to myself and to you.
If people just
So
got
yeah.
this better idea of what they do, I think they'd understand. And
Mhm.
I think it's people have good intentions. They want to see me perform, um, because I think they enjoy it, or they want me to see them in the audience to be like, hey, I'm here supporting, and it's proof of
Yeah.
concept both ways. Like they see me like doing an art, and I see them supporting the art, so it feels like it's a genuine connection, and that's amazing, and I'm so grateful for that. I've gotten to perform many times and had friends come out to see me perform, and it always means so much. I don't think they realize that when they're like, oh, I don't want to see it because you're not in it, that it empowers the patriarchy, or is the dramatic
Yeah.
the dramatic big stakes way to look at it. But it does.
I have 3 questions. Hurt, heal, joy. What currently, it can be in the arts, it can be anything that you feel ready to reveal. What is currently hurting you right now about the arts? Maybe it's directing, the world. What do you want to heal? And what brings you joy? Let me know when you're ready. No rush.
Ooh, I think I can just jump into this. So
Let's go.
I think the thing that's hurting me is seeing people becoming more aware of the consequences of not treating people who are not like them fairly, but not
Mm.
recognizing that that's the problem.
Huh.
So, especially with like COVID-19. So, one thing I think people need to practice social distancing and should not be partying in
Mm.
Florida. So, first of all, let me say that. But the more I thought about it, and I'm seeing things where people are like deriding these people, and they're like, why are they doing that? Don't they care about the old people dying? And and these millennials, and then millennials say, no, those are Gen Z people.
Yes, I've seen that too.
And
Oh boy.
but when I realized that, I'm like, oh my God, these are the school shooting generation children. These are people who
Mm.
have already accepted that they are going to die, that they could die
Mhm.
young. They went to school every day fearing for their lives, and
Mhm.
older people didn't do anything about it. They let
Mm.
them continue getting killed in school.
Oh, that's heavy. That gave me chills.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
But I was
heavy.
like, these
Mm.
people, they don't care about older generations because we didn't care about them.
Ooh,
They don't, and that's really, heavy, but it's like we didn't give them a reason to want to protect us because we have not protected them. And
my gosh.
they're all thinking, well, I knew I was going to die, but if I'm going to die anyway, let me at least, I made it to 21, which is an accomplishment because of our environment that we're living in. So I'm going to party it up and go out with a bang. And that's incredibly irresponsible. And I think it's something that, it's also being a young person, you're not
Mhm.
mature enough to understand the consequences. But what I realized, I'm like, that's why they are not looking at it the same way. That's
Right.
why they don't care. We
Yeah, because they have school shooting drills, and I certainly didn't have those.
exactly.
I certainly didn't have those.
Yeah, like, Columbine was a long time ago,
I
but
remember that.
things definitely amped up and still people didn't care. And Sandy
Mm,
Hook, where it was straight up little children.
mm,
um I think that's very scary. And these children, they're not the same. They're not the same as previous generations.
mhm.
They're also they were totally natively born into the internet age. So they
Yes.
have a global awareness. So they may not have the maturity, but they are aware. They know what it
Right.
means that people could die. But I think they probably, I can't imagine having a very optimistic view of my future or the world if I were that
Mhm.
age. And
This is you saying this, oh my gosh, what it strikes in me right now is the responsibility that we all have to one another. It's not just Gen Z or younger millennials or, boomers, blah, blah, blah. It's like, but what? It's cyclical, right? And you think about like the circle of life. I like think about like certain Disney movies that have some really great messaging in them. You think about what I love is come on, the Pocahontas song. What is it? You think that you land on, what is it called?
colors.
Colors of the Wind. It was only 2 years ago where I was just randomly singing that song. I was at a job I didn't like, and I was randomly singing that song in Chelsea to myself and listening to it. And I was like, oh shoot, this is deep. Oh my gosh.
Hmm. Hmm.
Oh my gosh. And I literally began to cry. Out, it's New York. We do everything we need to do in public. I was crying. And I was just like, "Oh my god, we are not taking care of the earth and we are not taking care of each other."
Hmm.
Oh my goodness. This is what this song is saying. We're not taking care. And that's what you're saying to me right now about what hurts. That resonates with me. I never saw it that way, Summer, but you're right. How have we taken care of essentially these babies?
Yeah.
How have we taken care of them?
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's easy to be mad at them right now when they're 21, but honestly, a couple years ago, literally a few
Mm,
years ago, they were children and
mm,
we would have pretended to be concerned about them and
right.
obviously didn't come through. But it's on other ends too. Like,
Mm,
Asian people are facing terrible racism because of this and
mm,
xenophobia. And I've seen a few people who are black or brown saying like, well, I'm not really going to stick my neck out for Asian people. What have they done for me? And as an Asian American, I know that's true. Asians are
mm,
huge perpetuators of anti-blackness and relatively have privilege over other brown people that we have not used to uplift other brown people.
mm.
And now it's like, oh, we want to, racism is never justified. But yeah, it makes you think about like, well, how can I expect other brown people to stick up for me now that people are being violent towards Asian people in the streets when we didn't care when people were violent towards them? When we're not out there
Wow.
for Black Lives Matter, when we don't care
Right.
about, Hispanic immigrants, even though we're all immigrants too. And
Mhm.
it really makes you think. So I guess that, to heal, I think that's what people realize. And this coronavirus thing, it really hurts. Like I said, people are not realizing the true message here, but People may discriminate, but biology doesn't. This virus does
No,
not
there
care.
it is.
And now we suddenly care about what's good for the general population because, oh, we're all the same? That's so surprising.
Right. Isn't that interesting?
I think we really need to reflect on this and be like, well, if this is one thing that we can all be on the same side on theoretically, think about everything else that we, like the environment and all of these other things. Like when there's a giant tornado or there's a fire or whatever it is, it's like we're just all human. And it takes a catastrophe like this for us to all think like, oh, we're all made of the same stuff. So it makes you think of why are we not advocating for each other during peaceful times when we don't have anything to worry about? And this public health, this idea of public health, and you want cooperation from groups that you have marginalized, and then you are also not looking out for the groups that are marginalized. So, like, you're continuing to not do that. So, how can you expect this to be good? How can you expect people to work together?
This is something I was thinking about last Friday. So I've been back home in California for about, I guess, about 10 days now. But I lived in New York for 7 years. So the first thing I actually think about when I wake up, and I get settled, I'm like, okay, how's New York doing? I'm paying rent in New York still, So, but something that was heavy on my heart last Friday when things really started getting serious, right? Or things were when people started realizing things were serious, was, oh my goodness, all of these people that I see on the subway, these people these mothers and fathers and aunties and uncles and grandparents who don't have means, who don't feel taken care of by the city, or at very least people might be getting a check here and there, but don't feel seen. You know what I'm saying? In a city where seeing the have and have nots, all you got to do is ride the train from Brooklyn to uptown and you'll see where the money's at, what's being gentrified. And I couldn't help but think, like, even though I was upset that people were still going out last weekend, I thought, well, also a lot of people are like, they don't care about me. And there's a very individualistic, like me and mine, I care about my family and that's it kind of thing. And I know that it's taking people time, like you've just said, to realize we're dealing with a virus here, y'all. And I know that this government has not taken care, but we as people, as the citizens, have to take care of each other. Because this is where we're really we're really having the magnifying glass is up to us, and we're saying, wow, there's the government and there's the government officials who care about us, who are the bridge, but you're really starting to see that separation of it being like, we have to take care of one another. And we have not been doing that. We just haven't. Not in the macro, not in the macro. What brings you joy?
I guess appreciating the freedoms that we do have, and big freedom and little freedom, and especially not theoretically being able to leave your house and do things like that. It just makes you realize how much more precious time with friends really is. How precious it is to be able to go anywhere, to have public transportation, to have employment. And as an artist, like, that's something that is so not essential, but essential can be my livelihood. I'm very blessed to have that. And it's been difficult in the middle of this because I've lost a lot of work, and In Full Color has seen a lot of events be canceled, but I'm also rediscovering like how art can thrive even under pressure, and how adapting. And now we're doing a bunch of different some viral virtual programming, which is fun, and is a new adventure for me. Not that I've never done anything online before ever, but it's interesting. It's interesting to kind of rethink about the model, but it's also making me reevaluate what is the thing that I give people, what is the value that I have to the world. And all these people who are like, I want to see you perform on stage. Well, you can't have that now.
There it is.
So how are you going to support my art? I guess they can see me on screen if they tune into a Zoom meeting, but it makes you wonder. It makes you think about the words that you put together and your legacy and then just how you're kind to people. It's brought me a lot of joy to see people helping each other. Yes. And learning more about themselves. So hopefully I don't know if on a macro level this pandemic will result in good things for society, but I hope that for as many people as possible, they're able to come out of this with something good.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I stand with you on that. I stand with you. And I think that, they say we see like society, the world, America, blah, 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 will change. But what really matters, as we see in anybody who has led change in society, is can the hearts of individuals change? And if there's enough, which I do believe there will be, then we will ultimately see that shift. It might not feel sudden, maybe it will, but you're right. People, individuals changing for the better. Is there anything else?
So if you want to support women artists, you really have to evaluate how you're consuming women's work. First of all, seek it out and pay for it if you can. Also give fair criticism. I think a lot of times people will say, I don't know, that wasn't as good as Steven Spielberg. And I'm like, well, it was an indie film filmed by, a college student on a $3,000 budget. So I don't. and also, I mean, to be fair, like if it's a marginalized woman, she has other obstacles, like poor women. A lot of minority women don't have the same access to capital, to quality arts education, even. So we're coming from a different place. Like we have vision and talent and skill, but we've had to battle all of this other stuff that's in our way. Queer and trans women too. And then like you were talking about how sometimes when women directors do get a shot at directing, it's just because they know someone. So it's also, you're limited as far as your network. If you didn't go to a fancy school, if you're not born into, a family that's in a class with money and expendable income they can use to pursue their hobbies. Maybe you have a hard time finding collaborators because others have bias. And so you want a safe space. So you're, curating who's on your team. There's a lot of things you have to consider that influence the product of women's work. And a lot of it is excellent, but I also hear people say a lot of things that are unfair towards the work that women directors create. Yeah. So just
absolutely
be understanding of women, seek them out, and really give their work props.
Give their work props. And on that too, I think on top of that, be consistent with that. We talked about consistency. It's there. Women are out there. And as much as we might not have a lot of women at the Hollywood, level who are known, there are a lot of women out there who direct, who have the skill, who have the desire, the passion, but it's really, that visibility. And like you said, that those resources, we're working 9 to 5s, then we have to we have to figure out how to even get the work done. You might not be able to go to every single networking event where investors are talking about, the skill of, writing, of being prepared or creating an LLC or all of those things that go into having the resources and the time. I want you to tell us how you are working on the inside. Like, what does Summer do to work on her inner peace herself?
Gosh.
Or what challenges, or hey, let's keep it real. What challenges do you have in doing that?
I guess for me, I'm a very creative person, but I'm also very organized, and I have a very compartmentalized brain. So when I'm discovering my artistry, sometimes I have to figure out, is my thinking limited or am I thinking too big? And I'll kind of be on different extremes of that. Um, and I'm really just trying to figure out who I am as a storyteller, especially individually, because working with so many other artists is amazing and the joy of my life. But I've also spent a lot of time away from who I am as an artist,
Yes.
as a writer. I haven't written, I used to be very, very, very prolific creatively. And I've still produced some things, some original writing in the past few years, but never to the same level that it was maybe 5, 6 years ago. So I kind of want to get back to that and also push myself a little further. Like, what were the things I could never do as a writer before, and why?
Right. Right. That's amazing. And challenging yourself and doing that work. I think for me, I've had the challenge of basically becoming a machine. I saw that a lot for, I kid you not, 2017 through really February of this year. I was basically a machine. I could continue to work long hours. I could just do. And then now it's like, oh my gosh, but what about me? Who am I? Who am I?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
How am I?
I'm the same. I'm very, very hardworking. I just keep going, keep going. Um, I'm a production machine. I'm like a monster, just like creating all of this stuff and having so many projects. And I love it. It makes me thrive. And I'm happiest when I'm busy. But it's interesting when you have quiet time with yourself and you're like, what am I doing? What do I want? Who am I? Like you said.
Oh my gosh, my shoulder hurts. My lower back is tight. Wait, huh? You're like, oh my goodness. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Any last words for our audience? I know people have taken away so much from this amazing interview, all the layers. Thank you so much for diving in, literally diving inside and beyond what we just see and who we just know you as. But any last words of wisdom, advice, or encouragement you'd like to leave any of our listeners?
I guess thinking about everything that we discussed today, to just really use the time that you have, no matter what your circumstances are, especially during this pandemic, to reflect on who you really are and also your relationships with other people. Not just the people who are close in your life, but with society, with different groups. If there's a group you don't feel connected to, why is that? Right? And knowing that you can both bond over your humanness, how can you use that to deepen your understanding of yourself and of others? And hopefully that can be a rewarding thought journey.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much, Summer. Thank you.
Thank you. This was so much fun, and I'm glad I got to to talk about all this crazy stuff with you.
I know. And it was all from the email last week. I was like, wait a minute, hold up. Lastly, please tell us how we can support In Full Color.
In Full Color is doing a lot of fun things virtually, which I'm really excited about. We're looking to do some open mics. We're looking to do some webinars. So people can sign up for our email newsletter at infullcolor.org, O-R-G. And they can also find up-to-date events information on the website. It's in our calendar. So they can see what's coming up, what they can tune into. We also have a lot of resources for artists and for people in general that's on our website. That includes different fundraising sources, different grants, and impact surveys, things that are really valuable for artists at this time. We're also offering some writing and editing services, private acting lessons. We're trying to figure out ways to continue serving artists and women of color through this time from my home office, What else do we have? We also have some merch. So you can get the Info Color Anthology, which has monologues and poems from all 5 seasons, including the amazing African Drum by Yhá Mourhia, right? And a few pieces by me, but it's a really good quarantine read. And, they're all each piece is like 5 minutes to perform at the most. So there's a lot of nice bite-sized pieces. You can just read a couple pieces, go to sleep, pick it up later. It's a fantastic book. We also have a coloring book called Girls Who Colored Outside the Lines, and that's available. It has portraits of women like Maya Angelou, Malala Yousafzai, Rita Moreno, and there's all sorts of fun biographical information and quotes and even activities. So if you have a kid, maybe grades 3 to 6, they're going to have a lot of fun with that. And it comes with crayons that are real people skin colors. So
I love it. Real people skin colors. I love that.
So, people can explore our website and enjoy these resources and support us. We also are fiscally sponsored, so they can make a tax-deductible donation through our website as well.
I will include all of those links also in the info of this interview. Thank you, Summer.
Thank you.
Have a beautiful, beautiful day. Take care. Take care. Take care. Hey, before you go, this has been another episode of Inside Out Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcast or Google Podcast or follow on Spotify. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Yhá Right Productions, for more digital and visual content coming your way soon. Follow Inside Out Podcast on Instagram and follow me, Ms. Right on Time, on the gram and Twitter. Thank you all for tuning in. I'm your host, Yhá Mourhia Right. See it, say it, spell it, and don't wear it out.